Right, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 20th of April 2022. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury, do we have any apologies for absence?
Good morning, Leader. I only have one apology, and that's from Councillor Julia Jessel.
Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Do we have any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody is indicating. Next item is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 6th of April 2022. Is that a correct record? Please, somebody. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the Leader's Update. Colleagues, tackling climate change, enhancing our environment and making Staffordshire more sustainable is one of the priorities in our new strategic plan. This Friday is Earth Day, a worldwide event to highlight the actions we can take to protect the planet. The theme this year is Invest in Our Planet, and we are already working hard and have cut council carbon emissions by 25% by switching to renewable energy and LED streetlights. Tree planting and other nature recovery schemes are underway. And on Friday, we will be hosting an exhibition in Stafford Market Square to inspire more people to do their bit, from waste reduction and recycling to greener travel options like walking and cycling. From investing in our planet to investment in Staffordshire's economy, staying in Stafford's Market Square, work is nearing completion on the £2 million transformation of Shire Hall into a new business centre and enterprise hub for small and start-up businesses. Funded by the developer, we are investing in a new junction at Stafford North Business Park, where the new Pets at Home facility will create 800 jobs. Elsewhere, hundreds of new small companies and job hunters have received support and funding from our £5 million Staffordshire Means Back to Business programme. From grants to advice, training, apprenticeships and more, it has helped numerous firms through the pandemic and helped Staffordshire people into work. These are just a few of the examples we are creating of how we are creating the conditions for our economy to grow and thrive and create more jobs and opportunities for our people. At this time of year, we stop to recognise those people who care for the most vulnerable in our communities. Now in their 8th year, the Dignity and Care Awards are now open, and we want your nominations for carers, colleagues, friends and family who look after people with dignity, respect and compassion. There are thousands of carers and hundreds of care companies in Staffordshire doing a vital job, and it's important we celebrate and thank them for all they do. I presented those awards for a number of years, and I've got to say meeting those carers at the Dignity and Care Awards is a real privilege, and it's an honour to be able to present those top performers with the awards. But everybody's a top performer in that area, and we thank them greatly for all the work and endeavour they engage with. Finally, colleagues, we are once again seeing people across Staffordshire stepping up and offering their support and homes for people fleeing war in Ukraine. We're doing our bit under the Government Homes for Ukraine scheme, carrying out all relevant checks on the sponsors and the accommodation they are offering, and making sure support is in place for the arrivals, everything from English lessons to school places and access to GP services. Many arrivals will be traumatised by their experiences in Ukraine, so it is essential they receive a warm welcome and checks are in place to protect the safety and well-being of everyone involved. And I'd like to pay particular tribute to the team at Staffordshire County Council who are leading on that, particularly Natasha Moody. And so, ladies and gentlemen, on to our next item. They are the minutes of the meeting held of the Property Subcommittee held on the 6th of April 2022. Can have somebody move those, please? Thank you, Councillor DeVille. Agenda item number 6, Staffordshire Means Back to Business, with the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. So as an outward facing economy with strong national and international links, Staffordshire is susceptible, as are all other places, to changes in global markets, as we're seeing at the moment with the effects of global pressures on commodity prices, particularly the inflationary effect. And we note that we have recently seen the announcement that interest rates have risen to their to 7%, the highest rise that we've seen since the 1990s. I think it's in 30 years actually. Combined with the increase in cost of living, particularly energy prices, we are aware that this does create an uncomfortable situation for many people, both individuals and businesses. In acknowledging those challenges, it is important, however, that as a county council, we focus on the things that are within our control, whether that's directly or working with partners, where we can influence the development of our economy for the betterment of our businesses and for people who live in Staffordshire, so that we can grow more and better paid jobs and allow people the freedom and independence that comes from economic activity. In that regard, and building on the success of our Staffordshire Means Back to Business programme, which the leader referred to in his opening remarks, we've recently launched our Staffordshire Investment Prospectus through our We Are Staffordshire brand activity, and that is a really important part of what we're doing within the County Council and with our colleagues at districts and boroughs to promote Staffordshire as a place to invest, a place to visit, and a place to live. And I just wanted to highlight a few of the key points that were within that document. It covers the whole of Staffordshire, and I'm pleased to say that there are a wealth of opportunities within that for businesses to invest here and to be part of the success that is the Staffordshire economy. Particularly within that, I would highlight the investment that we're receiving in Staffordshire through the Future High Streets and Town Deal programmes, where we're seeing over £130 million of planned investment into our towns to improve their condition and their suitability for business. We also have 96.4% coverage for superfast broadband in Staffordshire, and we have an ambition to be 100% gigabit connected by 2030. In addition to that, we have unrivaled connectivity being at the heart of the country, and that connectivity, although somewhat controversially, is being enhanced as we speak through the progress of HS2, something which, whilst this council opposed it, and we will continue to hold HS2 to account for their activities here, is something that makes that connectivity even better when it arrives. We're also home to one of the best playgrounds in the UK. We have a wealth of attractions here to bring people into our county to enjoy both our beautiful natural environment, but also some of the biggest individual attractions in the country, two of the biggest theme parks in the country, the National Memorial Arboretum, areas of outstanding natural beauty such as Cannock Chase, Kinver Edge, and who can forget a quarter of the Peak District National Park as well. And we're the home to the England football team up at St George's Park. We have a wealth of assets, things to bring people here to enjoy our county. And finally, and very proudly for me, we have a highly skilled and increasingly skilled workforce to offer investors, with 50% more of our adults having a level 4 qualification now than they did a decade ago. I'm enormously proud of that fact. We have a highly motivated, highly skilled workforce here. And those are all things where the County Council has been actively involved, both in making sure that we have the right conditions for those things to happen, often actively driving them from the front. And the investment prospectus that we've launched over the last month highlights those opportunities, both individual sites, but also the broader strength of our economy and the opportunities that we can offer businesses investing here to create further good jobs. I always like to refer to trends when I provide these updates, so I'll provide the latest data in terms of employment activity. Our youth unemployment currently stands at 4.3%, which equates to versus last month's figures, 4.2%. So we're relatively static in terms of our youth unemployment rate. That sits within an increase in vacancies overall in Staffordshire between February and March, equivalent to around 4,200 additional job vacancies. And our overall unemployment rate is currently at 3.1%, where it has been for a few months now. And that's versus a regional rate of 5.4% and a national rate of 4.4%. So there are many jobs in Staffordshire. Our employment rates are high compared to regional and national averages, and there are a lot more jobs there for people to take, which is good to see. And inflation poses its challenges for our businesses, but I think that demonstrates both the investment opportunities but also those employment figures, that our economy is very strong. It continues to grow. It continues to want more growth. And we can feel very confident in our economy. The final thing that I'll mention before closing, as we're holding this cabinet meeting during the Easter holidays, is just to highlight the huge scale and quality of our tourism and visitor economy, something which has had a challenging couple of years. The lockdown of the pandemic hit that part of our economy harder than most others. But my goodness, it has bounced back. It's a part of our economy that contributes over £1.8 billion to Staffordshire, providing employment for over 30,000 people here in the county. I mentioned the attractions earlier, so I won't go through them again, but we really are a part of the world that benefits from a wealth of those attractions. And after a tough couple of years during the pandemic, we're looking forward to welcoming back more people, both from around the country and from further afield, into Staffordshire, England's best playground. We hope that many more of them will come and visit and stay with us and spend their money here in our beautiful part of the world over the rest of this year. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you for your update. It is simply a verbal update, but there is some good news in there, and absolutely delighted to be hearing all those things that are going on. Councillor Parry.
Thank you. That was a really comprehensive overview of the state of the Staffordshire economy and its opportunities and its significant assets in terms of its ability to grow further. You mentioned a couple of economic factors, such as inflation, that are likely to have some impact, but also does show the resilience of the economy at the same time. There are significant consumer impacts in the pipeline, in fact, already at play, such as the cost of energy. And there was an assessment yesterday, I think, that an average energy bill by the autumn may well reach £3,000 a year, which is significant. On top of inflation and on top of other things, people are calling this a cost of living crisis. That may well be borne out. It's likely to have some impact, isn't it, on consumer demand. And already, I think, people are seeing subscription services declining in terms of the number of people choosing that as not a priority in their household budgets, etc. Who can blame them? But seriously, I think it's likely to curtail consumer spending in terms of net disposable income of homes and things like that, and may have an impact on retail and hospitality, which has already been struggling. I just wonder what your take was, because I think balanced with all the really positive news that we've got, there are some danger zones, aren't there, where we, I guess, need to be aware of and need to think about. And I was just wondering what your take on that might be.
So I wondered if it was a request for me to share my Netflix login with you at first, but okay. The serious point behind that is concern about stagflation, isn't it? That we'll see that inflationary rise and we'll see people choosing not to spend their money. I mean that thankfully is something that in the British economy, in the past, our consumer activity doesn't seem to have trended towards that as strongly as in some other places. But we do have to guard against it. I think there are two key things that we can do here. And I mentioned in my report that we have to focus on the levers that we can pull, rather than talking about the things that others might do, although we do feed back to others, particularly central government, and lobby where we feel it's appropriate. But the two key ones for me are firstly about the productivity of our businesses. So it's about making sure that wherever possible, we're removing barriers to their success and we're enhancing their success in areas where we can. And so an example of that I would give is, I mentioned the demand in our economy for employment, so those 4,200 additional vacancies. We're in the process of rolling out a recruitment product for Staffordshire businesses to make it easier for them to link with people that they might want to employ and to make it easier for those people to find those jobs. it's things like that. It's things like the broadband connectivity to make sure that businesses can sell efficiently online and communicate efficiently. It's those sort of things that we need to be doing on the productivity side. And then the other thing that we can do is on the marketing side and the promoting of economic activity, and that's where things like our investment prospectus, so that we're getting investors into our economy to generate those jobs that generate the wealth to mean that people will feel comfortable spending, and areas such as our visitor economy where we're highlighting those activities that are going on, the wonderful things that you can do here to tempt people out to spend their money. So those are the sort of things that we can do. We can't pull every lever because they don't belong to us, but where we can, we're very active in that regard. Hopefully that answers your question.
Councillor Wilson, Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Leader. When I first joined the County Council in 2017, I think that this county wasn't particularly known. People used to drive through the county to get from one place to another, and merely considered it to be somewhere where agriculture happened and there was a lot of farming. Over the last few years that I've been on the council, I've noticed massive change. I can see there's a direction of travel with definitely with the hospitality industry, but also and some of the things that you mentioned earlier, very relevant. But also there's things like the Staffordshire Way as well, which is something that we're working on promoting, and designing a website whereby businesses can actually advertise their, hotels and restaurants can advertise their services on our website. Obviously, we've also got the Commonwealth Games coming up that we've managed to participate in with the cycling time trial events, the baton relay and the mountain biking event. So I can see that there are changes happening in this county to really promote the amazing things that we have here. So I just want to say well done and thank you to this County Council for all of that. I'd like to know more about the agriculture side of things in terms of the economy. Is there a focus on that? Is there an issue with that? What is the price of a cow these days? Just wondering.
Get your internet out. Councillor DeVille and then Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. White. There's a general feel-good factor, isn't there, going around Staffordshire at the moment, and I think we're all thankful for that. Just adding to Mrs. Wilson's comments, great venues, positivity around the Commonwealth Games. I was fortunate enough, Philip, to attend a function at Alton Towers a couple of weeks ago, and Alton Towers are just getting on with it. They've had a dreadful 2 years that we know about. They've now got a massive influx of visitors, thankfully, and they're just getting on with providing an excellent experience and making guests and visitors feel safe. Also, Leader, I'm immensely grateful for the work that the County Council are doing with Staffordshire Moorlands District Council around the development and the regeneration of Cheadle. And Cheadle's at a point now where they can really enjoy the resurgence of Alton Towers and the extra traffic that's travelling to Alton Towers. And I'm grateful for the Moorlands Development Board that are certainly taking on board this opportunity and ensuring that Cheadle gets the best of the deal through extra investment and massive regeneration projects. And I really look forward to continue working with the Deputy Leader on these exciting projects.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. I think the Deputy Leader's pointed out the amazing investment we've had through town deals across the county, whether it's Stafford, Cannock, Burton, Newcastle, Kidsgrove. We should also note that this last week the UK Shared Prosperity Fund has been announced, and that's £30 million across the county, spread between the districts. £30 million across the county, spread between the districts and the county. That's again massive investment on the levelling up agenda from this government at a very difficult time. We've got many challenges, but also we're being supported from our government in London, and that money is for creating high-skilled jobs, training, investment in employment opportunities, creating robust communities and helping local businesses. So that money is really important comes on top of the multi-million pound investment we're going, and we're getting, and I can say from Newcastle's point of view and from Newcastle and Kidsgrove's point of view, we're using that money to its max to get benefits for local residents and beginning to deliver. Kidsgrove Sports Centre will be handed over to the community group in June, and they will open it in due course. We are working on our town centre in Newcastle on the Rycroft site through the Future High Streets Fund. This is money that's come through this government and through our Prime Minister. I think credit must go to him for that. He is delivering for us and delivering for local people. But again, we must make sure when we have this money, we deliver it on the front line, and we are doing that. And this extra money through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund adds to that and adds to the levelling up. Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Leader. So just whizzing through one of those points there, I think the benchmark sort of cattle prices for a Holstein Friesian, I think that's usually the one that you start with, and the price for a 3-year-old Holstein is about £1,600 at the moment, maybe slightly below, and that's sort of on trend for the last few years. So I'm just pleased to confirm that. I think the comments around rural areas is a bit of a Radio 2 link into the agenda item in a couple of items' time on our rural economic strategy, so thank you for that. The broader point about promoting Staffordshire is one that we can expand on almost endlessly, isn't it? Having the Commonwealth Games coming here is fantastic. It showcases Cannock Chase, the smallest area of outstanding natural beauty in the country, but a gem at that. And the Staffordshire Way, I know, Mrs. Wilson, you walked the entire Staffordshire Way last year, and it's enormous, isn't it? And showcases our beautiful countryside brilliantly. Takes you not too far away from Alton Towers as well. I didn't want to name a particular theme park because the leader has Drayton Manor sat in his division as well, so I didn't want to play favourites. But a wealth of assets, as I've said, and then that investment from government in terms of those assets that haven't perhaps been that well maintained over previous decades through all the different pots of levelling up money, the town deals, Future High Streets Fund, the Levelling Up Fund itself, and now the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. This is serious investment in our area, and the key thing is that we capture it and that we make the most of it. We use it intelligently whilst it's here, and I think we're doing that very well with our partners, such as Newcastle, Underline District Council, and Borough Council, sorry, forgive me, and Staffordshire Moorlands District Council. We get it all done through partnership, and we're good at that here in Staffordshire, and long may that continue.
Thank you very much indeed for the update report. Moving on then to agenda item number 7, which is the Integrated Performance Report Q4 21-22, brought to you by myself and Councillor Parry. And if I may kick off, sorry
if I've missed it, but I think we've missed item 5, the minutes of the property subcommittee.
No, we didn't.
Have you done them? Sorry.
Took them. I think we've done them. Yeah. Okay. But thank you for keeping us on our toes. Integrated Performance Report Q4 2021-2022. I'll lead off if I may, and Councillor Parry, if you could follow on. I just want to highlight to people perhaps who are watching this and reminding members of the committee, we spend a lot of time on performance in this organisation, not just around this table with our officers, but also with our scrutiny committees, making sure that we are doing as good a job as we possibly can do on behalf of the people that we represent. We take our performance tremendously seriously, and that's the reason why we get this comprehensive report, and that's the reason why we continue to hone the quality of this report and the way it's presented continuously, because we need to be honest about our performance and honest how we spend taxpayers' money. We continue to support those people who need us most, vulnerable residents, people in the care sector, and in particularly as costs continue to rise, undertaking programmes such as the Future Social Care Workforce Programme to improve that delivery and improve the outcomes for the workforce that support those in need. We continue to support local communities and businesses, as the Deputy Leader had highlighted in his previous report. The children that we look after, we take that role particularly seriously, and the delivery of our Children and Families Service continues to be embedded through the Building Resilient Families and Communities service. A really, really important piece of work, looking after those young children and young people in our care. Places where we have good news to report, things like the Warmer Home Scheme, where 3,500 people have accessed the scheme to seek help and advice, is particularly relevant at this time as the cost of energy continues to rise. We've helped over 500 households to improve the insulation of their homes. And when I see the Insulate Britain people protesting, I do get a little frustrated, because local authorities up and down this land are working very hard to help people to improve the insulation of their homes. We talked about the situation in Ukraine during the leaders' update. I once again want to pay tribute to the team at Staffordshire County Council who are working on this, led by Victoria and Councillor Wilson on the political front, and doing this within existing resources. These are additional pieces of work we need to do, and we've got no extra people to help out at the moment. We may need to address that in due course, but for the time being, we are doing that within existing resources. I just also want to highlight, before I hand over to Councillor Parry, the transparency that we have with our report on performance. If you turn to page 8, you will see that we don't hide anything. We highlight those things that we're doing well, which I think is a reason to celebrate, and we would be wanting to highlight those things that we're doing well. But equally, we identify the challenges that we face, and throughout the report, you'll see how we're addressing those challenges. And we're honest about that, and we submit ourselves to scrutiny to make sure that we tackle those challenges head on. I'm not going to steal too much of Councillor Parry's thunder, but the money's very, very important. And I just want to pay tribute to the financial team, led by Rob Salmon and Ian Parry, for the work that they do for keeping on the ball with the money. Because without good management of the money, we can't do anything. I hope I've not stolen too much of your thunder, Councillor Parry, but over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And following on from what you're saying about reporting our performance, this is kind of our interim end-of-year report to report how we are doing against the plan that we set at the beginning of the year. This council has a 4-year corporate plan that explains the overall objectives and strategies and policies of the council over that 4-year period, and that's refreshed and agreed each year at full council. This plan was agreed last year, and the new refresh plan, which we are embarking on right now, was agreed at our February annual council meeting. So this is a review, an historic review, if you like, of the last 12 months before the whole thing is reconciled and our financial position is finally an agreed outcome back in around June time. So this, therefore, reports across the council in terms of how we've done against that plan. Have we achieved? Have we underachieved? Have we overachieved? Have new things come to challenge us, etc., etc.? So it's quite a comprehensive plan. It's quite a comprehensive report, and I will leave it to colleagues to comment and report on their own particular areas of it. I will just give an overview of our financial position, because I think financial resilience and stability is highly prized these days in local government, and we're in a good position in this council that we have maintained a level of caution and correctly, I think, of a tight management of our resources, which means that we are in a more stable position. We're also encouraged by the fact that we do have an excellent finance team in the council. But not only that, we have a great set of leaders across the council. That means that we're able to achieve savings targets, for example, which is due to those teams within the council who've got ambitious targets or change strategies in place and have been able to deliver on those things. And the controls and stewardship of funds, as we've received increasing amounts of cash during COVID, have through audit and check, we can assure that spending, that stewardship of that money was done in accordance with good practice and good financial controls. So the bottom line is that we've finished the year in an interim position of just over £4 million underspent. That seems like a lot of money, but it's less than 1% of the total budget. It's still an excellent position to be in, given that lots of councils find themselves much more financially challenged, and I think we're in a position where we are relatively stable, and over our MTF period are in a fair position. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges, and we recognise the challenges that we've got financially. Some of those things are national issues that we're going to have to deal with locally. That includes, obviously, a review of local government finance if and when that happens. And there's good reasons why that may not happen this year due to timing. We have, of course, the health and social care changes that may well impact on cost of care and the way that we have to manage the finances around that. We have the go live, if you like, for the integrated care system later this year, and whilst that's meant initially that additional funding has come into the county this year through that integration work, the future of how that will work will, as I guess, will still leave some areas of uncertainty. And also, crucially, the children and families area, and I'll leave the cabinet member to talk about this in more detail, but that tends to be the area, I guess, of possibly our highest level of concern in terms of both the demands on the service and the complexity of those demands on the service, and at the same time trying to ensure that we provide a modern and accessible service to children and families. It means that our concerns around delivering the financial objectives there are more challenged than perhaps we would like, and therefore is an area that we've ambered in this report, because we see that's an area where we need to have greater focus and attention. So there are some, as the leader's already said, we're not painting everything as a rosy picture. We're painting this as a picture of a council that's in control of its finances, that it's stable, is robust, is cautious, but is also minded to invest where it can invest. So we've invested an extra £15 million this year in our highways, with an extra potentially £2 million in revenue to help part of that service to improve and equip itself for the future. So we're not afraid to invest. We've invested in the economy, etc., and we will continue to do that. We've also been mindful that we need to utilise our balance sheet better, and we have a disposal strategy under my colleague Mark DeVille's cabinet leadership that has been extremely successful in delivering over £11 million worth of capital receipts through that disposal strategy, which is really important to our overall financial management. So there are a number of areas where I think we've really been innovative and have delivered really well, but I mentioned that there are some areas that are still of concern to us. A small area of concern which interests me at the moment is our absenteeism rates within the council have increased and are higher than last year. It will be interesting to see, obviously over time, what the impact of COVID and of working practices has on our absenteeism management in terms of being able to ensure that our workforce remains healthy and safe in their workplace, and that there will be we'll make further inquiries into this over the next few months just to see where the impact, if you like, on absenteeism has on the council. And I think that's an important area both for the council, for the taxpayer, and also for the health and well-being of the council's employees. So if I may leave it to you, Leader, to present the recommendations in the report. There is one which takes just over £2 million in contingency out of contingency for the unexpected rise, pay increase that was budgeted at 0, but now, as you know, has been awarded. And therefore, if I can leave that to you, Leader, and perhaps ask Cabinet colleagues to comment on their own portfolio areas in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Parry, and thank you for your diligence that you provide us with the financial overview of the authority. Just turning to health and care in the absence of Councillor Jessel, I don't know if you wanted to come in, Councillor McMahon, but I just wanted to highlight an area of particular concern for me, which is the adult social care reform, including the fair cost of care and lifetime cap on care costs. I had a good conversation with Dr. Harling, the Director of Health and Care, last week about the implications of that for this authority. And whilst the reforms are well-intentioned, the costs of these are unforeseeable. And the range of estimates that we are talking about here are so broad as to be verging on meaningless, albeit if they're on the lowest of the ranges, it could be manageable. If it's on the highest of the ranges, it will be unmanageable within our current budgets. I would appeal to government to look very carefully at the fair cost of care and whether or not, and the adult social care reform, and whether or not this is possible to implement in the timescales that are described. We are talking about April 23, less than a year away, and the results of the Trailblazers aren't even known. In fact, I'm not even sure quite how far down the tracks the Trailblazers are. I don't think they're very far down, which is all about understanding how the adult social care reform, including the lifetime cap on care costs, would actually work out in reality on the ground. Those areas that have been chosen for Trailblazers don't really resemble this county, and so whilst they might give government the results they might be looking for, they won't necessarily be applicable across the entire country. So I am very concerned about that. And I know that the Health and Care Directorate are certainly on top of it. I'm also would like to draw people's attention to the high level of brokerage demand, which remains high. It's been consistently above pre-COVID levels for some time. And of course, this is putting pressure on our system, which is being coped with very well, but it is a point of pressure. The financial management of health and care, as I say, I'm speaking in Councillor Jessel's absence, and Councillor McMahon, you may well want to come in with a couple of other observations. The financial management of health and care remains strong, and I'm delighted to see that. It is a big spending directorate, and the fiscal rigour that health and care applies is, well, just wow. Every single penny is counted, and so we know that we're certain that that is very well disciplined within health and care. So they're my observations on health and care at the moment. Councillor McMahon, is there anything you wish to add on that?
Thank you, Leader. I certainly want to echo your concerns about the government social care reform, and we will do all we can to advise government that we think that this is a very precarious route, particularly when we don't know where the Trailblazers are going. Notwithstanding that, at the moment, demand seems to be turning the corner, and the capacity has stabilised, particularly in the home care market. And we think the capacity has stabilised in large part because what we did in what we arranged in Q3 and enacted in Q4 to keep staff in during the winter, and that appears to have worked. And we're particularly grateful that they've done a job that is difficult in a difficult time of year and stayed with us. The Better Care Fund, I think, is worthwhile mentioning. The NHS gave us a further 19.5 million into the Better Care Fund, which has been signed off by the Health and Wellbeing Board and by the co-chairs. It's there to support the care sector, and particularly to maintain discharge flow. And 10 of that 9 million has gone to Home First and home care, which represents that piece about helping people being discharged from hospital. It's gone to what we know works, and it will deliver for us as it's delivered for us in the past. I just want to say a few words about public health, if I may. I think the warmer home schemes that you mentioned is great news for us. In times when energy bills are going up, it is the case that those who get first-time central heating through the Home Care Fund, on average, will save £657 a year. And for those on lower incomes, for those on discretionary benefits and disability benefits, that's a significant amount of money. It's a competitive grant. I'm glad to be able to say that we've won 3 out of the 4 grants that we've bidded for so far. This grant finishes in Q1 of next year, of this current year, and we're applying for a 5th grant now. In terms of our supportive communities piece, which enhances the strength-based working to give people the dignity of staying at home, and allows non-statutory social care support through the voluntary sector. I can say that the community health point referrals are now increasing, that there's more community champions, particularly around Newcastle and the north. There's a locally focused approach to places with high need in Newcastle and the Muirlands, taking a granular understanding of the assets of both the NHS and the voluntary sector. And the reason we've chosen the north is that demand difficulties and difficulties with capacity resulting from that seem to be more pronounced in the north than they are in the south, and we want to get a good understanding of what the assets look like. I just want to say a few words about COVID, if I may. We're now living with COVID, and to that effect, our comms has changed such that we're now asking people to show respect for those who still feel threatened by the disease for whatever reason that might be. The booster program, the spring booster, is ongoing, and we are ready to stand up the local outbreak control board, surge testing, outbreaks in vulnerable settings, if and when the need arises, and turn up and scale up quickly at pace. Our Q4 saving is 1.176 million, which I think is to be, which is great, but we cannot let our eye off the medium and long-term risks, largely due to the government social care reforms and to the demand in the system. The other thing that we need to keep a particular eye on is the financial debt that people owe the Health and Care Directorate, and we're working as best we can to address that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for this report. And if I may talk a little bit about some of the areas within my portfolio and children's services and the related elements in particular. So Staffordshire has continued to experience pressures relating to the number and complexity of children we have in our care, as well as challenges associated with embedding a large-scale transformation programme. Work to embed that workforce structure continues. Leadership and senior roles have all been filled, and wider transformation elements are now live and are starting to embed well. Our work continues on recruitment to our new in-house residential units, and that programme that will continue. I think it's fair to say that nationally, children's social care faces a national problem around recruitment and retention of social workers. Here in Staffordshire, it tends to be more about the retention of more and recruitment of more experienced social workers. People join us who are newly qualified is always good, but there is work to be done so that we can retain and recruit at the more experienced end of the market, and that recruitment and recruitment of staff extends also to being able to find people to work with in residential care, and that's both in the mainly private sector that covers most of our residential care, but also internally as well. The social care review will be due shortly, and that should work together with the SEND review and the white paper on education will all impact on this area of work. So in Staffordshire, the amount of children that we have in our care is around about 1,300, which is a slight increase. But included in that figure are 121 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children that have come to Staffordshire as part of the government's national transfer scheme, and we continue to do that, and rightly so. Workers continue to co-produce a new Staffordshire early help strategy with the involvement of children and their families. This joint strategy, developed with key partners, is due to be in place this month. And we're going to finalise the early help and place-based approach implementation plan, which underpins that strategy. Following the 10-year, following the standard 10-year review of the agreement between ourselves and in trust, some of those members of staff coming back to the council are around the early years support, so work is ongoing in relation to that. And the leader spoke a little bit previously about the Building Resilient Families programme, which is now the Supporting Families programme, which is included in that report. And in this Q4, the Council achieved a successful outcome for a further 232 families, taking the total of families that we have worked with successfully to 1,238, in excess of the annual target of 813. And during this period, we have continued to administer over 12 million pounds over the last 12 months through the various COVID household support funds. These grants have helped over 100,000 people with food vouchers, including children who are entitled to free school meals and care leavers, and over 2,000 households with support for energy bills. And in the spring statement, it was announced that the Household Support Fund would be extended to the 30th of September to continue that support. So officers will be working on that. And we are now in the second week of Easter holidays, and during this time, the holiday activity and food programme has continued, where it has provided activities and food for children entitled to free school meals. So, Leader, although there are issues and things to overcome as we go forward, there is also some really good and positive news. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Did you want to come in, Councillor Price? Right at the last minute. You go ahead.
Apologies, Leader. Am I right to say a few words just quickly? Thank you. Excuse me. So yeah, a couple of items that are highlighted within the performance report. One of those is around the revisit we had from on our SEND local area visit, which was between the 18th and the 20th of January. It was really pleasing to see that over the 8 areas of weakness within SEND, we'd made significant progress within 6 and had made progress within the other 2. However, we still have much work to do going forward around... we've got much more work to do, sorry. You distracted me then. Much more work to do around co-production and particularly timeliness and quality of educational healthcare plans. The document also talks about the fact that the numbers of educational healthcare plans done within 20 weeks has dipped. However, as the district model has now started to settle in, we found that as we've got more SEND key workers in place as well, that's starting to stabilise. And with the work that we've done with SEND transformation and children's transformation, we're starting to see the fruits of all that hard work that's been done by Helen Riley and her team to increase those numbers. So it is starting to look much more positive. We are in a much more better position than perhaps we were previously. Obviously, the Green Paper has been released, the Green Paper from central government, and we are looking at that in very great detail at the moment, and we will be responding to that shortly. And then one other positive, really positive, good piece of news is around our admissions teams as well. And we've talked about 9 out of 10 of our parents having been allocated their first choice secondary school in Staffordshire. And that's a testimony to something that Staffordshire County Council and our admissions teams does a particularly good job around, making sure that all our children get the closest school as possible and their first choice. So I'm really, really proud of that. And we are around 98%, as it says within the papers. The national average is 93% last year. And some of that as well is around the Capital Schools programme work that we do, making sure that schools have got that capacity in particular areas, making sure that that's identified, that we're building particularly more classrooms and schools as well. And again, that is another piece of work that I think I'm really proud of with this authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Now, Councillor Williams, you've got a 270-page report at the next agenda item, but yes, you want to speak. So over to you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the size of the report. I just wanted to thank the people with response to the MTFS and the fact that we have been able to borrow and invest 15.5 million into the highways. We are under a lot of pressure from outside, and I just wanted to thank them for the work they did. Thank you.
We'll be hearing much more from Councillor Williams on the next agenda item. You can rest assured. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I just wanted to come in with only a few things from my portfolio, just things that are really good news stories. And as you'll see in the papers, our trading standards team has managed to save £750,000 this year for the taxpayer, which is a fantastic effort from everybody. Also, the VCSE, that goes live on August the 1st, once we've determined who our providers will be. As you're aware, our volunteers have continued to be a real grassroots level lifeline within their communities, both through the pandemic and post-pandemic, and now we're seeing similar in terms of helping with our guests, the Ukrainians that are coming into this county. Our archive service, which isn't mentioned on here, but our archive service, as you are aware, is changing. We're having an improved offer in Eastgate, and that should be seen hopefully this time next year. We should start to see the fruits of our labour on that. Our libraries have been again a shining example all over the county. They have become hubs within their communities and offer a great deal more than just a library service. Finally, I just wanted to mention, and I think the leader has already alluded to this, but the great work that we're doing in this county with regards to our guests, the Ukrainians. We have currently nearly 200 sponsors in this county who want to take families on and help them and see them through right up until the time they can finally possibly go back home to where they want to be. But all amazing work within my portfolio, and thanks to all the officers and everybody involved.
Councillor DeVille.
Thank you. Extremely comprehensive report. And you're right, Leader, this council places great importance on constantly measuring our performance. If we can't measure it, we can't improve it. Mr. Parry's entirely right, identifying the massive challenges that we face, Leader, moving forward. Absenteeism is a real problem in all walks of life, all businesses. We're going to have to deal with that. Inflationary problems will be a massive challenge, particularly in the world of infrastructure, in our infrastructure projects, where the cost of materials is only going in one direction, Leader. But colleagues, members of staff at the council, and most importantly our residents can rest assured that we'll continue to focus totally on achieving best value, delivering best value and delivering very best services. Within my area of work, we've recently bought back in-house the household recycling sites. It's a service that virtually everyone in Staffordshire uses. We're already, Leader, seeing improvements of customer service and value for money improvements within that service. That improvement will go on. It's an ongoing programme of improvements. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the members of staff, particularly the members of staff on the shop floor who face up to our customers, for the way that they've seamlessly changed the service and the way that they have absolutely taken on board the need to continuously improve the service to the customers. So a very good report, Leader, thank you, which I'm very happy to support.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. I'd just like to associate my comment with the comments from Mark DeVille there on the household waste recycling sites and that bringing in-house, which has been successful. I think residents will see the benefit over the next few years of that. I'd like to comment on the Superfast Staffordshire programme rollout for broadband. It was touched on by the Deputy Leader in his report, but just I think it's a really good news story that we've brought about there over many years, the County Council. 96% of premises connectivity. And those 4% remaining we're missing out are benefiting as much as we can from the voucher scheme to get them online. We've got a new strategy coming to Cabinet in June. It went through scrutiny last week. One little update I'd like to make, if I could, Leader, is that as part of the rollout of Project Gigabit, the Department for Culture, Digital Culture and Media Services is procuring the contractors for that, and they've unfortunately during that process stalled all of the voucher rollout. So we currently have a number of communities that thought they were going to get the link up to super fast and gigabit, but are currently on hold. So I think what I'm going to do is put forward is write to the Minister and ask them to reconsider that, because we're already having a bit of a kickback from communities who thought that they were going to get the rollout aren't at the moment. So I pledge, Leader, to write to the Minister and ask them to reconsider to continue that rollout while they're procuring the new gigabit.
Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. And thank you for your comprehensive input. Councillor Parry, can I just come back to you? Is there anything you wish to say by way of concluding remarks before I go to the recommendations? Thank you. There are two recommendations. First, to note and challenge performance and advise of any further information and or action required. And second, approve the use of £2.702 million from the contingency budget to fund the National Pay Award relating to the 2021 to 2022. This is not currently included in service budgets as a pay freeze was assumed during the MTFS. That is moved. All those in favour? Agreed. For the record, that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. We now move to agenda item 8, the much anticipated, hotly awaited and expertly delivered Staffordshire Highway Infrastructure and Asset Management Plan. Now, Councillor Williams, I've bigged you up, so we are looking forward to an outstanding presentation of your 269-page report. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Leader, and obviously I will attempt to not let you down. The objective of this Highway Infrastructure Asset Management Plan is to lay out in a clear and transparent manner how Staffordshire manages our highway assets to keep them safe for use and fit for purpose. This HIAMP, as I refer to it, recognises that well-managed highway network is the lifeblood of our local communities. Our communities rely on a good road and path system as a basic access to access jobs, healthcare, education and have social interaction. It's easy to think of our highways network as simply a means for people to travel from A to B. In reality, the highway network has many other functions. Our roads form vital components of residential areas, affecting the overall quality of life for local people and helping to engender pride in our communities. The term highway as used here refers to the highway maintainable at public expense by Staffordshire County Council and to all assets in this area. The types of assets covered in this HIAMP includes carriageways, footways, highway structures, lighting, including lighting columns, and other assets such as vehicle restraint systems and the green estate. The HIAMP is an organic document and will be revised from time to time as necessary. One key role of the HIAMP is to make the connections between the higher legal level and strategic context governing work and the day-to-day decisions the Council makes to maintain its road network. Following this approach of linking strategy with practice, the document sets out the levels of service which we intend to provide from the physical assets themselves. HIAMP explains the processes undertaken to assist in providing this service efficiently and achieving value for money. In particular, the HIAMP aims to explain how decisions are made to replace or extend the life of an asset or repair it. HIAMP supports delivery of the Council's medium-term financial strategy and also ensures that we are able to maximise DFT incentive fund resources. It's also aligned to support the net zero aspirations of the Council, and targets are set in the Highway Infrastructure Roadmap to the net zero 15-year plan. Therefore, Leader, without going into the entire 200 and so many pages, I would recommend that Cabinet approve the new Highway Infrastructure Asset Management Plan that was brought forward in February for Staffordshire and its annex documents, and B, delegate the power to approve the HIAMP supported documents to the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to yourself and the team for all the work that's gone into this. It is a huge document, but the words themselves belie the amount of energy and effort that sits beneath them. An awful lot of thinking, restructuring and new ways of delivering are going to have to be put into place in order to make this plan become a reality. We are responding to the demands of those people we met during the course of our campaigning over the past couple of years. They want to see a more responsive highway service, they want to see quicker response times, and they want better information about what's going on with their highways. And they have every right to demand that from us. And Councillor Williams, you leading this and standing up to be counted on this is what you wanted, it's what you've got, and now we look forward to the delivery of that. There are some challenges ahead. I'd just like to draw colleagues' attention to points that were made by Councillor White and Councillor DeVille. Inflation is going, and Councillor Parry, inflation is going to be a very significant component of our cost calculations during the forthcoming year or years. The additional investment of over £15 million on top of that we already get granted from government is a significant contribution by this authority. That borrowing will have to be paid for, and it will be over to all of us corporately to make sure that we are able to finance that borrowing. But it is disappointing, with the world markets as they are, that some of that additional investment we're going to put into highways will be used up because costs are going up. Notwithstanding that fact, we do expect and anticipate an improvement to the highways across Staffordshire. We will, of course, through our scrutiny committees and through the work we do ourselves, through our monitoring reports, be keeping abreast of how this develops over the next 6 months, year, and moving forward. I just want to finally turn to I suppose the comment that people might make, which is that you are reforming something that you already put in place. We do this because circumstances change. Nothing stays the same. That's the reason why the NHS needs to keep reforming. When the NHS was set up, life expectancy was 67 years. Now it's significantly longer than that, and the conditions that people suffer from and the treatments that are available have changed beyond recognition. Highways changes, people's expectations of highways change, and the way we deliver on the highways will change as time moves forward. And that is what this does. It responds to those changing circumstances and gives us the opportunity to deliver highways in a slightly different way as set out in this Highways Infrastructure Asset Management Plan. So I conclude by saying thank you once again to you and your teams for all this work. It is tremendous, and I look forward to the delivery on the ground. A little bit of expectation management, I suppose, just to finish off with. For those people watching who are expecting roads like billiard tables, that is never going to happen, okay? We would like to have our highways better than they are, and that's the reason why this has come in. But the idea that we will have roads that you can play snooker on is for the birds, to be quite frank. Councillor Parry.
This is an excellent report, and I guess what it does is lift our understanding of highway management from what we see as members probably through the lens of our inbox of complaints about defects and minor things such as potholes, which are major things to the people who encounter them on their daily lives, and not to underestimate that. But what this report shows us is the size, scale, diversity, complexity of managing a highways network in a rural county like Staffordshire, and that beyond that management of road surfaces is a complex plan of all sorts of things that need to be maintained, from a grade 2 star listed bridge to an infrastructure junction, etc., to lighting, etc., right the way down to things like the detail of grass cutting and weed control and footpaths and all those sort of things. So when you see the scale of it from, if you like, top to bottom, it is a massive undertaking, which I think we do well to present reports like this and actually explain reports like this as to this is not the simple kind of just put the tarmac down and make sure our road services are smooth in our villages and towns. Because if we don't have the rest, we don't have safe roads, we don't have the means to move, to transport goods and services to where they need to be so that we can all consume those goods and services. We don't have the infrastructure that allows public transport to operate efficiently, and we don't have the ability for all of us to be able to get around safely and conveniently around the county. So it is something that we need to be mindful of in terms of how the money works also in this, that yes, there's parts of where we invest in it, but much of it comes from central government grant or bids or capital monies for various things that we've successfully achieved. So this is a really important, I think, piece on our agenda today, and it's not often that we get the opportunity to see that broad picture of our highways. I laughingly call it asset. Actually, it's our highways liability that we need to manage, and the size and scale of the whole undertaking is absolutely remarkable in a county like this that's predominantly rural, roads that have been there since the Conqueror's day, that we still have to maintain. It's not an easy task, and it's not an inexpensive task. So we do have to be mindful that there isn't, we don't set any expectation of snooker table, billy table standards of surfaces. If you want that, it would quickly bankrupt the council, because the taxpayer simply cannot afford that standard. What we can do is provide an acceptable standard of highway that allows people to get around safely, that doesn't damage their vehicles, that is acceptable. But what we can't give is perfection in any of these things. And I think, to quote the Secretary of State, quoting the Secretary of State this morning, let's not perfection get in the way of good, which I think applies very well to this area of highways infrastructure as well. But a terrific report, and really interesting, honestly.
Councillor Tagg and Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, echo the comments made by all members so far. I think this is a great plan. I think it's the first time it's all been brought together into this whole document. That's why it's so big. I think also it's in a readable format. It's in a digestible format. Also setting out the standards which we provide in all of these service areas. I mean, I concentrate here on the management of highway trees, a very, very high profile thing for a lot of residents. I represent an area that's got, tree-lined avenues, etc., dated from the 1930s when the houses were built. This sets out how the inspection regime will take place, how we manage the risk, how we maintain those trees, how we fell the trees when necessary, what we do about replanting, and also licensing consent for people to plant on their own grass verges in a reasonable manner, and also how we use these grass verges as these habitats. They are a habitat. They're the byways and highways of our county, and we can use them for nature habitats and nature restoration and also nature protection as well. So it's a key point. I think what I really like about this strategy, I think it's a compliment and a credit to the officers that have put this together. A lot of work has gone into this, is that green thread we talk about goes all the way through this, with that roadmap to net zero throughout this, and every section of this contains how we're going to reach that within this sustainable limits which we have, not only in budgets but also in protecting the environment and improving the habitats we have. And as I say again, grass verges, particularly as you go out of towns into the rural areas, they are nature reserves, I see, and we should be enhancing them, protecting them, and through the strategy we can do that. Thank you.
Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, just to continue a little bit on that theme about the report, I really welcome this report. It's really comprehensive, and as Mr. Tagg just mentioned, it brings everything together in one place. There is one particular paragraph, 1.22, which I think explains the dilemma that is faced going forward, and the way in which we must operate. And it talks about the rationale between deciding to repair one really bad road or maintain 3 roads that are not quite so bad, and the rationale of why we might wait one decision, or one decision might be made over another. And I just think that that explains a lot about how going forward roads are maintained, and works to what Mr. Parry was saying around it's not going to be possible to do absolutely everything, and that sometimes good is what we need to aim for. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Williams, anything you wanted to come back on before we vote on the recommendation?
Thank you, Leader. Just to say I agree. I think part of what we do need to do, and especially as members, is to ensure that our parishes and our residents are aware of expectation and what we will be able to deliver. It is a very difficult situation at the moment with finances, as well as actual materials and workforce, because they are not as available as they used to be. But I can honestly say that, first of all, the work that Darryl and his team have put in is fantastic. James Bailey, David Walters and the rest who have put this together have put together a really comprehensive report that we've ensured that is able to be understood and can be as transparent as it can be within the council. And secondly, that all of the teams that we have tried to do and the way we are working this with our transformation is to actually bring our teams along with us, so that it's not something new to them. We've had their input, and we've actually utilised that to our advantage, and that is why we're going to work forward, so that, as you say, I'm there to stand and be counted for what we do, and this is exactly the way we're going to do it, and we will be following that all the way through. So I thank people for their comments. We do have to make sure that people are aware of the realism of expectations, but at the same time we will continue to monitor and we will continue to address issues in a risk-based format, and wherever possible we'll accentuate whatever we can. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Agreed. For the record, that is unanimous. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the Staffordshire Rural Economic Strategy, with Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. I mean, it's interesting to note, isn't it, how many of our agenda items are interconnected, and one of the common themes that we have when we're discussing Staffordshire is our enormously rural character as a place, and the consequences that has for our people. Almost 80% of Staffordshire is classified as being rural, but interestingly, because I think most people realise that when they drive around Staffordshire, interestingly, around 60% of our economy is also based in those rural areas. It is an enormous driver in our economy and in our success as a place. And when we came to review our economic strategy, on the back of our very successful Staffordshire Means Back to Business programme, which took us through the pandemic years, in developing our overall strategy for the economy of Staffordshire, we recognised that it was really important that we developed a complementary strategy which addressed the particular needs of our rural areas. Complementary in that it focuses on the same overarching themes around regenerating our high streets, encouraging a more highly skilled and highly paid workforce, encouraging more startups and step-ups, and putting us in a position to bid more and more successfully for funding, whether that's private sector investment or whether that is funding from central government, but then translating that into a rural setting. So this piece of work has been ongoing for some time. It's at the stage now where we're ready to take it out to consultation. Last month, Cabinet agreed to take our overall economic strategy out to consultation, and what we want to do is to be able to put these two strategies side by side for people to consider and comment upon, so that we have their view on the fit between the overall economic strategy and the rural economic strategy. In terms of how we've developed to this point, the rural economic strategy, we've worked closely with stakeholders, so businesses and other organisations that represent rural areas. We have had expert advice from an organisation called Warwick Economic Development, who are market leaders in this area, and we've built a strong evidence base which has led us to identify 5 priorities that specifically relate to rural economic development. So those are firstly to stimulate enterprise and innovation within the rural economy. The rural economy is very interesting because although it has enormous strength in traditional land-based areas, so particularly agriculture and forestry and tourism, which we were discussing earlier, actually the largest sector of our rural economy is manufacturing, which is something that came out of that evidence-based work that we've done. And the service sector is ever growing, and I think that's one of those interesting themes that we see with the increasing ability to work from home and to run businesses from areas where possibly that wasn't feasible in the past, with the appropriate connectivity. So our first priority is stimulating more of that enterprise, generating more business startups, step-ups, and more high-paid and high-value jobs in those areas. The second relates to those traditional land-based sectors, which is to support the sustainable intensification of agriculture and forestry. So providing that enhancement. Staffordshire in particular has a lot of smaller farm holdings, so intensification may look at how those are viable in the modern era, but it's also about diversification, about carbon reduction, and also about succession within those businesses, so making sure that there are the people there, the skilled individuals who can take on those land-based businesses. The third strand relates to our visitor economy. We talked about that a lot earlier, so I won't go over that ground again, but it's a huge strength in Staffordshire, an area that is recovering from the pandemic, but an area where we think there's considerable further growth that can be achieved, particularly in terms of people to come and stay in Staffordshire and enjoy those rural areas for a little bit longer. The fourth strand relates to connectivity. We've talked about the roads today, but the other aspect of connectivity is digital connectivity and making sure that those rural businesses, workers and residents, and indeed visitors, have got access to good digital connectivity so that they can do whatever they want to do wherever they are in our county. And hats off to the work that Councillor Tagg and his team are doing in that regard. It is a focus within this strategy that we continue to enhance that. And then the fifth strand, crucially, is supporting the regeneration of our rural hub towns. Now, rural hub towns are something that central government have been putting quite a focus on in terms of identifying those areas that people use in rural locations for services and to come together to socialise. And in our area, we've identified 5 of those in Leek, Cheadle, Stone, Uttoxeter and Rugeley. So we in particular want to focus within the strategy on unlocking investment opportunities in those areas. And within all of this, we want to be able to both do those things that we can do here in Staffordshire through our own resources and with our partners, but also to speak to others about these priorities. And I think that is a really important point, perhaps to close on, in this overview, which is to say that central government perhaps struggles a little bit more with rural areas and rural investment than it does with metropolitan areas. And the overall aim of this strategy is for us to be clear about what we want with an evidence base, so that we can then go and speak clearly to others to say, this is what we are doing, this is how we want you to add into that, and these are the benefits that will accrue from it. In making sure that we do that in an authentic way, it is crucial that we engage as comprehensively as possible with people who have a stake in those rural areas. And that's why the consultation is so important, and that's why our ask of Cabinet today is to authorise that consultation commences in conjunction with the consultation on the broader economic strategy for the county. Leader, I'll leave it there and answer any questions you have before I read the recommendations.
Thank you. I'll just remind Cabinet that we are authorising the draft to go out to consultation. It's very important that we listen to what people have to say who perhaps might have a really important point to make about how we manage our rural economic strategy. So I would just ask Cabinet members maybe to hold your fire at this point, because I don't want to give a sense necessarily that we've got fixed views about how this will go. We certainly want to be listening to people, and we don't want to stand accused of having a sort of fixed opinion. Notwithstanding that fact, I'm more than happy to open it up to questions. Councillor Parry.
No, I didn't want to comment on the report itself in a sense, but offer an idea around something that's in the report that may well be encouraged in the consultation, if I put it that way, which was really about the point on sustained intensification of agriculture in the county. And you mentioned, Deputy Leader, that the county has a large number of small and medium-sized farms, which often adds its own complexities in terms of scaling up and economies of scale, etc., in what is likely to be, over the next few years, a very changing industry in agriculture, isn't it, I guess? And I'm just wondering where in Staffordshire they would draw on the science, technology and innovation that might allow agriculture to be able to, if you like, equip itself or transform itself into something which is going to be competitive in a post-Brexit world where, subsidy is going to be for, public money for public good type stuff, less so about, I've got a farm, give me a grant. This is, I guess, makes a different competitive environment for farmers, for farming, and clearly we want to see Staffordshire farming succeed, do well, but it will need to innovate and draw on new science, new technology to be able to do that. I'm just wondering how we might achieve that, and whether this consultation might stimulate some of that debate.
Yeah, so I think the leader's apocryphal words about not predetermining where we go with this are important, but the strategy's there in detail in draft form. One of the key strands of that is around innovation, and another is around skills, and I think those two combined probably speak to what you're talking about, because the innovation then leads into the upskilling and higher productivity of the workforce in those land-based areas. So we're very lucky in this part of the world that we've got Keele University, who are in partnership with just over the border in Shropshire, Harper Adams, who are one of the two leading land-based universities in the country, and Keele, one of the leading innovation universities in the world. And we also have one of the best land-based colleges in the country with South Staffordshire College and their Robaston campus doing a lot of this work. So we've got those assets in terms of how we capture the high-end innovation and then commercialise it and then get that into our farms. We are doing some work around that, which I'm not going to talk about today, but around how we can perhaps plant a flag in the ground in terms of some of that. It's a little early to talk about that here, but that work is underway. The only other thing I'll say in terms of investment opportunities, which is one of the key things in here, there's a great investment opportunity there waiting for the Department for Education at Robaston. There's a huge asset there waiting to be fully realised, in my opinion. So I'm sure the Secretary of State for Education is listening to our webcast today, and I'm sure he'll take some interest in that. But it's a really good point, Councillor Parry.
As is probably the rest of the government. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I endorse the approach you're taking here. I think that, a wide-ranging consultation to get all of the stakeholders, and particularly the crucial ones. I'm sure the Deputy Leader would agree with me that people like the National Farmers Union and the Wildlife Trust to be involved heavily in this. And I think, and communities across the rural area, I think they can really have a real input into this, and particularly like the sustainable implications of this, and also that connecting, which we talked about in the digital area. I think those are two key things in this consultation. We're interested to hear people's views on. But does the Deputy Leader agree with me that we've got the right mix of stakeholders as detailed in the report, so we can get all the views of the rural community?
Yeah, I think the important thing is that we're not being prescriptive. So we've done considerable work with the obvious stakeholders, the ones who identify themselves and regularly engage on these sort of matters. And you've mentioned a couple of very important ones there. But what we want is we want people to select themselves to contribute what they think, whether they come from a particular organisation or not. And that's really the point of this consultation, and the call to action which will go out after this meeting, assuming you agree to the recommendations. And that is, whoever you are, whatever your interest in this area, please give us your thoughts. We really want to add to that evidence base to make sure that we are doing the right things in this strategy. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I've been waiting for this to arrive for quite a long time, and you haven't let me down. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results of the consultation are. Just going back on what you just said there about is it every single member of Staffordshire that's going to be able to respond to the consultation? I think that if that's true, you're going to see such a myriad of responses. I wonder how easy you might find it to tie in the sort of key themes and deliver that. But the actual report itself, that I'll be happy to approve, looks very promising. So thank you very much. I have been banging on about it for quite a while, so thank you.
After you've dealt with that, if you could give us the recommendations, Councillor White.
Of course. I think one of the joys of consultations is that myriad of responses, and the value in that always comes out of the analysis, doesn't it, and identifying those key themes. And I'm hoping that a lot of it will be confirmatory, that we've identified a lot of the right things, but I'm pretty sure that there'll be a few surprises in there. And then what we want to be able to do is to respond really positively to those, and, as I say, make sure that this is authentic. And when we are going about our business here, or indeed going down to London and banging on people's desks and saying, give us a bit of money to do this, please, that we're asking about the right things. So that's the reason why the consultation is so important. The recommendations, Leader, are firstly that Cabinet approves the consultation draft of the Rural Economic Strategy. Secondly, that Cabinet agrees to conduct a 4-week public consultation seeking views from stakeholders, businesses and residents on the draft Rural Economic Strategy. Third, that the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, that's me, takes the draft Rural Economic Strategy to the next available Prosperous Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting for consideration and input, and we have a date penciled in the diary for that. Fourth, that the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills,
is that you?
That's me as well, and the Director for Economy, Infrastructure and Skills, Darryl Ayres, be authorised to agree changes and finalise the Rural Economic Strategy based on the feedback received from the public consultation, Prosperous Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and in response to government policy announcements, including the Levelling Up White Paper. And finally, that working with those Cabinet members with associated responsibilities, the Director for Economy, Infrastructure and Skills be authorised to progress the development of supporting delivery plans, working with our partners as appropriate. Thank you, Leader.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. Thank you. Moving forward to agenda item number 10. This is the formal report of the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader. Protecting children and young people is a priority for this council, and as part of that, taking the investigation of complaints seriously is is really important. In the investigation of any complaints that we receive, members of our staff take a part in that, so that going forward, that learning can be used in how we develop the service and move forward. There are some criteria when we decide whether to deal with complaints, and in the case that is highlighted here, a decision was made by the council that because it was out of time that we would not investigate the complaint, albeit the complainant was provided with details of our investigation and what we had found. The complainant then raised that with the local government and social care ombudsman, and basically they found that we had failed to relate the rationale to the complainant properly, and for that they found fault with us and recommended as part of this that we should reconsider the complaint, and that is what we shall do. I can read the recommendations now, or I can wait. Yeah. So the recommendations are, I recommend that Cabinet considers the former report from the local government and social care ombudsman in relation to the decision making of accepting a complaint for investigation, and B, considers the recommendations made as part of the investigation report and the finding of upheld maladministration and injustice.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Sutton, and thank you for acknowledging the LGSCO report. It is appropriate that we bring these to the Cabinet when mistakes are made and acknowledge those in public. And so in so doing, we have the two recommendations that have been tabled this morning. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving forward to the Framework Agreement for Demolition Services, brought to us this morning by Councillor DeVille, Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters.
Thank you, Leader. So, colleagues, this is another important framework agreement that ensures that we obtain best value, best flexibility, and that we satisfy all legal requirements. We have a massive property portfolio, Leader, and as we continue to innovate and develop our services in line with our strategic plan, we need to manage these property assets effectively. So part of that management is to occasionally demolish buildings. This allows for the construction of new facilities for ourselves, new facilities for our partners. The demolition of buildings on land surplus to requirements also maximises the disposal value, which gives best value and enables us then to reinvest in our frontline services. Annual spend on demolition obviously varies, but it works out, Leader, to average about £1 million per annum. So we're talking a considerable amount of money. Now, it's my responsibility that we always get best value. And this framework, along with other frameworks that I've brought to Cabinet, ensure that we do just that. It's envisaged that we appoint 3 providers to the framework, and all of the tenderers will be asked to provide an agreed schedule of rates for demolition work and associated services. So, as always, Mr. Chairman, this process provides a real opportunity for local companies to tender for this work and carry out these demolition operations. So as well as ensuring best value, ensuring that we adhere to all legalities around tendering, it's also a massive opportunity to contribute positively to our local economy. Happy to take any questions, Chairman. If not, I'll move straight through to the recommendations.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, welcome this. I think obviously we do know demolitions can take a long time. Obviously anybody that lives in Newcastle seats, it's a 47-week programme to reduce the former civic offices to rubble, and that is because of the asbestos that's included in the building. It's had to be a very detailed operation there, so I think we can accept that. I'm really interested in the framework agreement on the need to recycle and use waste products and the appropriate disposal of these issues as well, because we do have a particular landfill in Newcastle which over the years has we believe taken many materials such as plasterboard, etc., and other things which of course have been investigated by the Environment Agency. I think this framework will allow us to ensure that anything that comes from a county demolished building will be disposed of properly in the professional way as per the law, and I think that can only be good, and I think I'm really pleased to see that's been included, particularly with the problems we're having in Newcastle.
It is not just the financial costs of the framework agreement that is on our minds, of course. It's also the fact that when demolition goes wrong, it becomes very, very expensive indeed. The inappropriate disposal of the outputs from a demolition contract, or indeed the inappropriate management of land that needs remediating is also very expensive as well. So I'm delighted to see that you're across this, Councillor DeVille, and look forward to making sure that we've got good demolition contracts in place for the future.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just before I read the recommendations, Councillor Tagg, you're so right. And I say on many occasions that all of our work, all of the work that we do, that environmental thread passes through all of our work, and it's got to be part of the day job. And you're quite right, you know, the safe and proper disposal of materials is critically important. In a nutshell, Chairman, this framework, along with other frameworks, ensures, you know, it almost relates to Councillor Parry's item earlier. It ensures that we constantly keep a finger on the pulse, that we constantly provide best value, and that we constantly getting the very best out of our contracts. I'll read the recommendations, Chairman. I recommend this morning that Cabinet agrees to officers undertaking a procurement exercise in line with the public contract regulations in 2015, the regulations, for the framework agreement for the provision of demolition and associated services. That's the framework agreement. B, that we approve that following the procurement process, the successful suppliers be appointed to the framework agreement for the period 1st of July 2022 through to the 30th of June 2024, and that dependent on the quality of their delivery, that the 24-month service extension be implemented to an end date of the 30th of June 2026. And finally, that we agree that the Director for Corporate Services be delegated authority to A, approve the initial awards of the tendered providers to the framework agreement, B, to approve all subsequent awards of call-off contracts under this framework agreement, and C, if applicable, to approve the 2-year extension to the framework agreement in its second year. They are today's recommendations on this item, Chairman.
You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour? Agreed. That is unanimous. Next item is the decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. There is one undertaken by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters in approving the termination of the joint venture agreements with Kier Limited and winding up of Pender Limited. Next item is the forward plan of key decisions. Just get there. In May, we've got the Staffordshire Better Care Fund 2021-2022, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Moving forward to June, in public, Corporate Delivery Plan 2022-2023, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. The Bus Service Improvement Plan, Enhanced Partnership Plan and Scheme, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. The Digital Connectivity... Don't know. That's very keen-eyed of you. No, there's an inconsistency. I wonder if the inconsistency applies throughout the forward plan. Let's find out, shall we, Councillor Parry? Moving forward then to the digital connectivity in Staffordshire, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Moving forward, Staffordshire Sustainability Board Vision and Council Commitments, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, confirmed as Councillor Tagg. Financial outturn 2021-2022, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, who we discover is Councillor Parry. Then again in June, it's going to be a busy one, mobilisation of Staffordshire's household waste recycling centres, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille, and Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Moving forward to July, North Staffordshire Local Air Quality Plan, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, who is nameless. Second time. Well. Any reason for that, Mr. Bradbury? There's something you know that I don't? What are we to make of it? Next is in August, Families, Health and Wellbeing 0 to 19 service from April 2024, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And again in private this time in August, Family Hub Model Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. So that remains a mystery. We'll solve that in due course. Right, next item is the exclusion of the public, that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following exempt items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below. It is moved.